Bond. James Bond.
What happens when you take a 50-year-old icon of cinema and hit the reset button? Kind of. For so many of us that are older than 30, and perhaps some younger people as well, James Bond movies have made up a sizable chunk of our film diet from when we were very, very young. Especially in the UK, it seemed like every household had at least a few on VHS, and they were consistently on TV. We were very in tune with the formula of a Bond movie. Even if we couldn't articulate it, we'd seen them so many times that we all knew how a Bond movie should feel. It would begin with the gun barrel sequence, move on to some dramatic action to set the film up,
Hold on, you're dead!
which would lead into a legendary opening credits sequence with a great piece of music,
with a view to a kill.
after which the film would begin proper. Bond would get his mission,
Good evening, sir. Just 3 a.m.
he would get his gadgets,
In the car you're trailing, while you keep out of sight.
and go on an action adventure to find and eliminate the bad guy at their base of operations. And he'd meet at least one woman along the way. And when something came along that might end up altering that formula, it was very controversial. For example, check out my video on GoldenEye's music. However, none of us could have dreamed that following Pierce Brosnan's final outing in Die Another Day, the producers would make the monumental decision to partially reboot the series. Rather than the piecemeal films that stand completely alone, they were to create a sequential timeline. Bond movies with direct sequels? What is this? For Bond nerds like me, this was a very difficult pill to swallow. After all, we loved these movies. We'd been entertained by them for years. Some of them hadn't aged the best, but the series had evolved with the times, and the implicit assumption was that it would continue to do so. But alas, it wasn't long before the relatively unknown actor Daniel Craig was chosen to bring the next generation of Bond to life. Now this was exciting, as Pierce Brosnan had been the only Bond in my lifetime.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
And after this news broke, me and some friends at college were having some very deep, very intelligent, and very, very important conversations about this shocking development. And the severity and urgency of our analysis was compounded further when we discovered that the great, the legendary Chris Cornell was being brought on board to write the theme tune for this illustrious new film. With us being huge fans of Soundgarden and Audioslave at the time, this was incredible. I was still apprehensive and resentful about rebooting something that I felt didn't need to be rebooted, but I was liking what I was hearing. And then we learned that the movie they were going to make was Casino Royale. Interestingly, this was one book that Albert Broccoli was unable to secure the rights for, as they had already been sold on when he set out to produce the original Bond movies. Hence why the first Broccoli Bond was Dr. No. To me, this did make Casino Royale seem the perfect choice for this quote-unquote reboot. And with this massive discussion and consideration complete, the big day finally arrived. Me, with Messrs Jamie B, Drew and Josh, headed to Scott Cinemas 20 years ago, almost to the day at the time of making this video. And we were to complete the most unmissable assignment in movies, going to see the new Bond film. But then the film began, and something was off. Where was the gun barrel sequence? What is this? I knew it was a reboot, but why were they undermining the formula? No. Even though this opening sequence was clearly outstanding, and I could see that, it didn't matter. This was not James Bond.
Shame. We barely got to know each other.
I was getting all up in my head as to why this movie just wasn't it. I was getting annoyed that the film wasn't meeting my artificially created expectations. I was making myself dislike it when suddenly... in this instant, everything changed. My doubts were destroyed. My uncertainty obliterated. They'd done it. And all before the opening credits even started.
If you take life.
They were not rebooting James Bond. No. What they were doing was modernizing the classic formula that we all loved. And it would turn out to be magnificent.
I love you too, Em.
And what followed was a truly spectacular James Bond movie. In addition to directing my other favorite James Bond movie, Martin Campbell pulled off a miracle and led the creation of a real modern origin story as to how James Bond became James Bond. Countless fantastic action sequences, from the insane, thrilling parkour chase to the phenomenal airport sequence. Mads Mikkelsen as Le Chiffre, Eva Green as Vesper.
I'm the money.
Judi Dench remained undefeated as M.
You've got a bloody cheek.
All outstanding. And the cherry on the mountain of this greatness was David Arnold's ingenious score. I don't know if it was Martin Campbell's direction, the producers, or David himself, but the music in this film is based almost entirely around Chris Cornell's all-time great Bond theme, You Know My Name. Now, of course, basing a Bond score around the theme tune is nothing new. This is something that John Barry mastered time and time again. The difference here is that we have not even heard the Bond theme for most of the film. And it's only when James goes to confront Mr. White, having survived the trauma of everything that had happened beforehand, culminating with Vesper's betrayal, when we finally hear him say,
"The name's Bond. James Bond."
And with this, we were left totally satisfied that Bond was back and ready for the modern era. An outstanding James Bond movie. And for me, it all clicked at the moment Bond turned round and took that shot. I really remember that moment like it was yesterday. It was like a lightning bolt. But it is interesting how sometimes we can get inside our own head a bit too much and then make ourselves dislike something for no reason at all. But how did you feel about Casino Royale? Did you appreciate the kind of reboot that they went for, or did you think that they should have stuck with the old ways? I'm a massive fan of the old Bond movies. I really love Casino Royale. I thought the movies that came after Casino Royale were a bit up and down, but on the whole, I did enjoy Daniel Craig as James Bond quite a lot. But what did you think? How do you feel about it? Let me know down in the comments. But if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate if you could consider clicking like. And if you'd like to see more videos about cool, awesome stuff, consider clicking subscribe. But either way, I want to thank you very much for making it all the way to the end of the video. I appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.